What if love didn't need fireworks to prove itself? What if romance was not a performance to win, but the air you carried so naturally that everyone around you could breathe easier? Chosen one, this is what you embody now. You do not chase romance because it already lives within you. You step into a room, and without effort the atmosphere changes. Sound does not fall silent, but it adjusts, as though everything remembers the harmony it was created to hold. Nothing flashy happens, yet everything shifts. Shoulders lower, breaths release. Even the clock stops panting and simply keeps its rhythm. Feminine single women are not drawn to spectacle. They lean toward the rare relief of a presence that does not spin them. Have you noticed how powerful gentleness becomes when it does not audition? How magnetic confidence feels when it does not posture? How safe focus becomes when it does not requisition more than it gives? This is the rare combination that the heart reads as home. Warmth that knows how to stay housed. Strength that knows how to stay governed. Attention that returns what it borrows. It is not the magic of clever lines or practiced poses. It is the craft of congruence. Your inner life and outer presence have finally met and agreed to cooperate. You have not rehearsed yourself larger than the moment, and because of that, you are large enough to hold it. What if romance was never about drama, but about stewardship? The way you close a door softly, the way your words arrive at the right temperature, the way silence becomes a room where meaning can dress itself instead of a test she must pass. The feminine feels it immediately. The end of the transaction economy of affection. She is not being measured to be acquired. She is being received to be respected. Your charisma is not a lantern flung wildly in a storm. It is a steady light placed at human height so faces can stay human. Do you see how rare it is to meet a man shaped by vows instead of tricks? Vows too small to trend online, but too sacred to abandon. The vow to let a boundary remain a boundary without punishment. The vow to keep desire lucid so consent stays a language, not a checkpoint. The vow to end an hour in a way that leaves tomorrow uninjured. The vow to keep your word where your hands can reach it. Women's bodies read these vows before their minds can interpret them. Shoulders descend. Vigilance takes a night off, and softer colors return. Isn't it striking how romance in your care no longer feels like spectacle, but like solvency? It lowers the cost of being real. You don't make a stage out of her softness. You make space for it like a guest of honor, expected and welcome. You don't chase her radiance with your shadow. You adjust your attention until her light is free to shine without interruption. You don't force intimacy to justify itself. You let clarity bring it in quietly. Attraction in your presence isn't a spike that burns out with sparks. It is a hearth that refuses to consume the house to prove it is warm. You are heard. You have become the kind of man whose listening makes a life audible to itself. People don't gather around you because your stories shine. They gather because their own stories stop trembling in your presence. You listen the way a shoreline does, receiving every wave without trying to hold the ocean hostage. Your questions arrive like open doors, never like checkpoints. Your silences are not traps laid to test her. They are rooms where meaning can take its time to form and breathe. A feminine heart, tired of being summarized, analyzed, or solved, senses immediately that you are not a collector of confessions. You do not harvest secrets to use later as decoration or leverage. You are a keeper of context. Because of that, her voice finds strength, and her breath arranges itself into full sentences. She no longer needs to break her story into pieces small enough to be palatable. She does not have to shrink her pain into something prettier or reframe her wonder into something more logical. She can speak as she is. She can also rest in the spaces where speech is not required. That relief, more than flattery, is the body's first and favorite proof. You train for this without applause. You learn to regulate your own weather so her nervous system would not have to defend itself from your thunder. You study the difference between attention and appetite, between curiosity and control. You practice hearing not just the words spoken, but the toll it took to speak them. You noticed the speed of her voice when she tried to outrun doubt, and slowed your own cadence to catch the truth falling between her syllables. You stopped answering questions her courage had not yet asked. You let relief be the first gift your presence offered, because relief is where safety begins. Your listening carries weight because it gives back what it receives. You do not hoard what she shares to buy control later. You do not turn her history into an accessory to decorate your image. You do not posture as the man who understands women while secretly auditioning for her gratitude. You hold, you understand, you act when invited, and you set nothing ablaze just to appear passionate. In this quiet economy, intimacy stops bargaining for scraps and begins to expect steady mercies. Near you, she does not need to edit herself into something more polished or palatable to fit your comfort. She risks telling you the unpolished truth before it hardens into a lie. She risks showing you the wish she is shy of, the wound she is tired of, and the wonder she would rather not explain. You make space without spectacle. There is a discipline in how you do this. You reflect without reenacting. You can name a pattern without turning it into a sentence of guilt. You can offer edges without declaring rules. You can invite pace without implying that slowness means a lack of desire. You understand that listening is architecture. It is not just an act, but a structure. It decides where weight can be set down, which doors swing open, which windows let in light, and which keep out noise. Because your architecture is sound, her memories stop rearranging themselves every time someone enters. The chair she needs is where she left it. The floor is steady. The roof does not leak when it rains. She can look out a window and see possibility rather than threat. She can trust the room you hold. Your listening is not passivity. It is presence that remains useful. You follow up without suffocating. You remember what mattered and let the rest fade away with the day. You show that care has both memory and calendar. When she makes a quiet promise to herself, you are the one who asks a week later, not to monitor her, but to honor her intention. When she is tired of repeating the same explanation in rooms that will not hear, you become the room where she doesn't need to explain at all. Sometimes you ask, do you want empathy, advice, or silence? And then you respect the answer. Sometimes you say, take your time, I am here. And you mean it. Sometimes you simply pour her a glass of water, drape a blanket over her shoulders, or offer a steady breath alongside her own. Her body keeps score of these mercies. The nervous system that once braced for misunderstanding learns to invest in clarity. The hidden consequence, one that vanity could never manufacture, is that her self-talk begins to shift. The courtroom in her chest, once noisy with cross-examinations, falls silent. The prosecutor retires for lack of evidence. The witness stand gathers dust. She starts speaking to herself in your cadence. Measured, kind, exact. She chooses rest before her edges grow sharp. She sets boundaries early, in warmth, rather than late. In anger, she answers messages in proportion to the bond, not in proportion to her anxiety. She begins to feel that life is not a performance, but a place where she can breathe. This is why so many women long for a man like you. Not because you are loud or dazzling, but because life becomes more livable near you, and the livability lingers even after you are gone. Romance that improves her solitude is the only kind she can trust. If being with you leaves her kinder to herself, more honest with her feelings, more at home in her body, then that is romance. If she still breathes easier in your absence because of the way you modeled calm, that is romance. If she dares to say yes more freely and no more gently, that is romance. You resist the temptation to turn listening into a trick or technique. You know technique without ethos becomes theater. You do not fake pauses or counterfeit empathy. You keep your listening clean by keeping your motives clean. You are not auditioning for sainthood. You are not trying to earn access through patience. You are simply practicing stewardship of her dignity, of your power, of the truth that appears when a human being is heard without being harvested. The ones truly chosen are recognized by this restraint. They do not use the right thing to get the wrong thing. They keep the right thing because it is right, and the rest takes care of itself. There will be days when her history asks for proof you have already given. You repeat yourself gently. There will be hours when silence feels like abandonment to the parts of her that survived by guessing. You mark the silence with small landmarks. I'm here. Take your time. We can pause. There will be moments when your ego demands a spotlight for being so good at disappearing. In those moments, you remember that the miracle is not you, but what is being born through the space you keep. You celebrate her growth without making it a performance. You name the victories she overlooks, not to earn praise, but to offer her a mirror. I saw how you rested before you broke. I saw how you asked without apologizing. I saw how you kept your tenderness alive. Your praise is not vague or manipulative. It is sober, specific, and nourishing. It feeds what is good rather than training her to perform for crumbs. When repair is needed, you do not hide behind intentions. You allow impact to matter. You say, I missed that. I'm sorry. You ask, how can I make it right? You let the repair take the time it needs. You do not rush forgiveness. You learn and adjust. You let humility keep the door open for tomorrow. Your body is part of your listening. Your breath is slow. Your shoulders relax. Your eyes are kind rather than hungry. Your posture says, you are not in danger here. You notice her small signals, a hand gripping too tightly, an inhale cut short, a laugh too quick to be true. You let silence do half the work. You resist the urge to diagnose or direct. You allow the truth to find its own pace. You honor her boundaries as though they are sacred. You do not pressure her timing. You let not yet be a sentence that still holds romance. You know that consent is not a contract, but a rhythm that must be honored each time. You trust that sweetness cannot be rushed. You understand that the way you treat a pause is the prophecy of how you will treat the person. You stay a student. You learn her world, the pressures that have asked her to be smaller, quieter, or safer than she is. You do not argue her experience to protect your pride. You ask how you can carry a corner of what is heavy. You show love in unglamorous ways, finishing the task, giving the ride, remembering the date, holding the boundary steady when she is tired. You know that romance lives in blankets, charged phones, glasses of water, warm cars, and reminders that her body is a safe place to live. The result of your presence is not flashy, but it is revolutionary. Her future begins to reorganize. Decisions that once felt like survival begin to feel like choice. Old alarms grow quieter. The voice that asked, "What's wrong with me?" turns into, "What's true for me?" And then sometimes it turns into silence, the sweet kind that needs no defense. The romance you are building does not need confetti. It needs continuity. It needs the small, faithful gestures that accumulate into climate, not just weather. Over time, she stops planting in fear of storms and starts planting in hope of harvest. Your consistency becomes the environment in which she can imagine tomorrow with less fear. When she thanks you, as she surely will, receive it like rain, useful, unhoarded, proof that the weather is doing what it was meant to do. You will know your listening is true when her gratitude shows up not as performance toward you, but as patience toward herself. That patience is the most romantic bloom in the garden you tend. It lasts, it feeds, it seeds new mercies, and you, the keeper of context, will keep tending, not for applause, not for reward, but for the quiet miracle that happens when a life finally feels safe enough to grow.